Hi, Gary. Greg Miller here. Need a quote on a boom barrier installation. Sure thing, Mr. Miller, Gary said, his voice professional. Commercial property, parking structure, loading zone? Residential driveway, actually, I admitted. There was a distinct pause. Your house driveway? Yeah, I said quickly, launching into my prepared explanation. Got a persistent, long-term issue with unauthorized parking blocking my access. Tried everything else. Need a physical deterrent. Automatic arm, remote entry, full safety features. Gary was silent for another moment, then chuckled. Unauthorized parking, huh? Neighbor? You have no idea. Okay, Gary said, sounding intrigued now. Okay, I get it. First time for everything, I guess. Yeah, we can do it. Need to run dedicated power out there from your panel. Pour a solid concrete base for the operator cabinet. Gotta be level and strong. Cut loops in the driveway for exit sensing and safety. Photo I-beams across the entrance. Program remotes. We talking basic model or heavy duty? Heavy duty, I said immediately. Something that says access denied with authority. Gotcha, Gary replied. Strategic access denial. My favorite kind. All right, I can come out Thursday, take measurements, show you some options, draw up a proper quote. This, he added, a smile in his voice, should be fun. It always started the same way. Morning. Me, already running late because, let's face it, I'm not exactly a morning person. Showered, caffeinated, barely, tie slightly askew, briefcase in hand, ready to face the soul-crushing commute and another thrilling day navigating spreadsheets that could bore a rock into submission. I hit the garage door opener, back out my sensible sedan, and screech to a halt halfway down the driveway. Because it was there. Again. Karen's car. Usually her beige Camry, sometimes her husband's slightly less beige SUV, parked squarely behind me, blocking me in completely. Not just peeking over the line, mind you. Full-on perpendicular, you shall not pass, parked. Like my driveway was the overflow lot for her personal vehicle fleet. This particular morning it was the Camry, and I had a 9 a.m. presentation, a big one. The kind where your boss uses phrases like career-defining opportunity and don't screw this up, Miller. It was 8:15 a.m. My commute, on a good day, was 30 minutes. Panic started bubbling in my chest, hot and acidic. Unbelievable, I muttered, slamming my palm against the steering wheel. Again, seriously again? I laid on the horn. A long, angry blast that probably violated 17 HOA noise ordinances right there. Nothing. No movement from Karen's house. No curtains twitching. Just silence. And the beige Camry mocking me. I got out, marched up her walkway, avoiding the suspiciously perfect petunias, and hammered on her front door. Ding dong, knock knock knock, hammer hammer hammer. Finally, after what felt like an eternity measured in rising blood pressure, the door opened a crack. Karen peered out, wearing a fluffy pink bathrobe, and looking vaguely surprised to see me, as if finding her frantic neighbor pounding on her door at 8:17 a.m. was a completely unexpected event. Michael? She asked, her voice syrupy sweet. Is everything all right? She always called me Michael when she was being particularly infuriating. My name is Greg. All right, I sputtered, trying to keep my voice below a full-on shriek. No, Karen, everything is not all right. Your car, it's blocking my driveway. Again, I have a huge presentation at 9 a.m. She blinked slowly. Oh dear, is it? Silly me. She didn't look silly. She looked smug. I just popped back inside for a moment to refill my coffee. Lost track of time chatting with Mildred on the phone about the Garden Club bake sale. Karen, I said through gritted teeth, it's been there since last night. I saw it when I took the trash out. Was it? She feigned surprise, poorly. Goodness, I must be more forgetful than I thought. I'll move it right away. Right away, in Karen Standard Time, apparently meant 5 minutes of slowly gathering her keys, shuffling out in her slippers, starting the car, checking her mirrors 17 times, and finally, agonizingly, backing out just enough for me to squeeze past, leaving approximately 3 inches of clearance. I didn't wait to thank her. I peeled out of my driveway, already composing apologies in my head for being late, the scent of burnt rubber mingling with the scent of burning rage. I made the presentation, barely, fueled by adrenaline and hatred. This wasn't an isolated incident. Oh no, this was a pattern, a campaign. It started subtly, maybe 6 months after she moved in. Limited street parking on our cul-de-sac, fine. Her having guests over, okay, maybe she needed overflow space once in a while. But then it became her default. Running errands? Just park behind Greg's car. Bringing in groceries? Quicker to block Greg's driveway. Feeling generally entitled? Greg's driveway is basically public domain. My wife, Susan, bless her patient heart, initially advocated diplomacy. Just talk to her, Greg, she'd urged. Maybe she doesn't realize how much it bothers you. So I talked to her, multiple times. Hey, Karen, could you please try not to block the driveway? I need to get out for work early most mornings. Her response? Oh, heavens, Michael, was I in your way? So sorry. It's just so convenient when I'm unloading things. No change. Then came the notes. First, polite. Karen, please don't block driveway. Thanks, Greg. Found it crumpled in her recycling bin. Then, less polite. Karen, driveway mine. Park elsewhere. That earned me a passive-aggressive comment delivered over the hedge about the state of my lawn edging. Apparently, my grass borders were more offensive than her blatant disregard for private property. Next, I tried physical deterrence. Bright orange traffic cones placed strategically at the end of my driveway. Worked for about 2 days. Then I came out one morning to find the cones neatly stacked on my lawn, and her car parked exactly where they'd been. She'd moved them to park there. The audacity! I called the police once, after being blocked in for nearly an hour when I had a doctor's appointment. They came, lights off, looking bored. They talked to her. She gave them the same wide-eyed, "Oh dear, I forgot," routine. They gave her a stern lecture about blocking access, but told me it was primarily a civil matter, a neighbor dispute, unless she actively refused to move when asked directly by an officer. Which, of course, she never did when they were there. I even called a tow truck company once, in a moment of sheer desperation. Explained the situation. The dispatcher sighed. Look, buddy, it's on private property, right? Technically his driveway, technically hers parked behind him. Unless you got specific no parking/tow away zone signs posted that meet city code, and maybe not even then. We touch that car. We could be liable if she claims damage. We can't get involved in neighbor squabbles. Sorry. Karen naturally moved her car about 5 minutes before the tow truck would have hypothetically arrived anyway. I complained to the HOA, sent emails, attended a meeting, showed them photos. They listened patiently, nodded sympathetically, and then sent both me and Karen a generic form letter about promoting neighborly harmony and being mindful of shared community spaces, which included helpful tips like try communicating openly and respect property lines. Utterly useless. They didn't handle parking disputes on private driveways, they explained. It was outside their purview. Unless, of course, her car was leaking oil onto my driveway, that they could fine her for. So there I was, trapped, literally and figuratively. Polite requests failed, notes failed, cones failed. Police were sympathetic, but powerless. Tow trucks wouldn't touch it. The HOA was a bureaucratic black hole. Karen held all the cards, or rather, parked all the cars. My own driveway had become her personal valet zone, and my schedule was held hostage by her whims and her coffee refills. Something had to give. The absolute final straw wasn't even about me being late for work. It was about Kevin Jr. Tempo's championship soccer game. He's 12, plays goalie, and this was the big one, city finals. Kickoff at 9 a.m. Saturday morning across town. We needed to leave by 8 a.m. sharp to get there for warm-ups. You can guess what happened. 8 a.m. I hit the garage door opener, ready to load up Kevin's gear bag and bright orange goalie gloves. And there it sits. Not the Camry this time. Her husband's hulking SUV, parked at a jaunty angle, blocking not just my car, but half the sidewalk, too. I lost it. Not yelling, not screaming, just a cold, terrifying calm washed over me. I walked over, rang her doorbell, waited, rang again, knocked, waited. Nothing. Lights were on inside. I could hear a TV. She was ignoring me. Kevin Jr. came out, dragging his bag, face anxious. "Dad, we gotta go." "I know, buddy," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "Looks like Karen's decided we're not going anywhere just yet." I called the non-emergency police line again, explained the situation, the championship game. They said they'd dispatch someone when an officer was free, but Saturday mornings were busy. No promises. We waited. 8:15, 8:20. Kevin was pacing, kicking at imaginary soccer balls. 8:30. Warm-ups officially started. Still no Karen, still no cops. Finally, around 8:40, her garage door rumbled open. She emerged, dressed for tennis, racket in hand, looking completely unconcerned. "Oh, Michael," she chirped, spotting us standing there like hostages by my garage. "Heading out? Sorry, Bob needed the SUV this morning, had to park it somewhere." She waved vaguely and got into her Camry, parked in her own driveway, miraculously, and drove off. Bob emerged moments later, got in the SUV, and also drove off without a word. They weren't even home while blocking me in. They just left it there. We missed the first half of Kevin's game. By the time we got there, sweaty and stressed, his team was already down by 2 goals. He played his heart out in the second half, but they lost. Seeing the disappointment on his face, that was it. The line hadn't just been crossed, it had been obliterated. War was declared. And I knew conventional weapons, notes, cones, reason were useless against an adversary like Karen. I needed escalation. I needed technology. I needed finality. The epiphany came, ironically, while paying for parking at the hospital a few days later. Routine checkup, nothing serious, though my blood pressure was probably setting records thanks to Karen. As I pulled up to the exit booth, the long, white and red striped arm of the boom barrier descended smoothly behind me. Clunk, secure, impassable, automated, impersonal. My eyes widened. That was the answer. No more arguments. No more notes. No more hoping Karen develops a conscience or remembers where her own driveway is. Just a simple, mechanical denial of entry. A physical impossibility for her to park there. Could you even install one of those things on a residential driveway? It seemed extreme, like using a tank to kill a mosquito. But the mosquito was driving me insane. That night, fueled by righteous fury and several cups of coffee, I went down the rabbit hole of driveway access control systems. Turns out, while uncommon for your average suburban house, it wasn't impossible. Companies specialized in gate operators, security arms, all that jazz, mostly for commercial properties or fancy gated communities. But the technology existed. I researched types. Manual? No, too much effort. And knowing Karen, she'd probably try to argue with me every time I lowered it. Automatic was the way to go. Triggered by a remote control for me. Maybe an automatic exit sensor so I wouldn't trap myself inside. Safety features were paramount. I didn't want the thing chopping the mailman in half or decapitating a Girl Scout selling cookies. Photo I-beams, vehicle detection loops cut into the driveway, pressure sensors on the arm itself. The works. It needed power, run out to the driveway entrance, a solid concrete base for the operator mechanism. This wasn't going to be cheap. This wasn't going to be subtle. This was going to be glorious. I checked the city ordinances online. Nothing specific about boom barriers on residential properties. There were rules about structures near the public right-of-way, sidewalk, setbacks for fences, permits required for electrical work. Okay, doable. Then the HOA bylaws. I scoured that wretched document again. Fences? Yes, pages of rules. Sheds? Yep. Mailboxes? Oh yeah. Driveway surfaces? You betcha. Approved pavers only. But driveway access control barriers? Not a word. It was uncharted territory, an unregulated frontier ripe for exploitation. My wife, Susan, was skeptical. "Greg, are you serious?" she asked, looking at the commercial security websites I had pulled up. "You want to install a parking garage arm on our driveway? Won't that look insane?" "Insane?" I countered, scrolling through heavy-duty barrier options. "Susan, what's insane is living next door to someone who uses your driveway as their personal parking spot. What's insane is missing Kevin's championship game because she forgot." "This," I declared, pointing at a particularly robust-looking model, "is sanity. This is order. This is peace of mind. One automated arm swing at a time." She sighed. "How much is this peace of mind going to cost?" I showed her the preliminary quotes I was finding online. She sighed again, louder this time. "Just promise me it won't be bright orange, okay?" Finding someone to actually install it took a few calls. The first couple of security gate companies I called basically laughed. "A boom arm? For your house? Like why?" But then I found Secure Entry Systems. They mostly did warehouses and office parks, but their website mentioned high-end residential gate automation. I got Gary the gate guy on the phone. "Hi Gary, Greg Miller here. Need a quote on a boom barrier installation." "Sure thing, Mr. Miller," Gary said, his voice professional. "Commercial property? Parking structure? Loading zone?" Residential driveway, actually," I admitted. There was a distinct pause. "Your house driveway?" "Yeah," I said quickly, launching into my prepared explanation. "Got a persistent long-term issue with unauthorized parking blocking my access. Tried everything else. Need a physical deterrent. Automatic arm, remote entry, full safety features." Gary was silent for another moment, then chuckled. "Unauthorized parking, huh, neighbor?" "You have no idea." "Okay," Gary said, sounding intrigued now. "Okay, I get it. First time for everything, I guess." "Yeah, we can do it. Need to run dedicated power out there from your panel. Pour a solid concrete base for the operator cabinet. Gotta be level and strong. Cut loops in the driveway for exit sensing and safety. Photo eye beams across the entrance. Program remotes. We talking basic model or heavy duty?" "Heavy duty," I said immediately. "Something that says access denied with authority." "Gotcha," Gary replied. "Strategic access denial, my favorite kind. All right, I can come out Thursday, take measurements, show you some options, draw up a proper quote. This," he added, a smile in his voice, "should be fun." Fun wasn't exactly the word I'd use. Necessary? Absolutely. Expensive? Undoubtedly. But potentially, just potentially, the solution to my Karen problem. The boom was about to be lowered. Installation day felt like D-Day, but with more concrete and fewer landing craft. Gary the gate guy arrived bright and early with his Secure Entry Systems truck and a two-man crew. They were efficient, professional, and seemed only mildly bemused by the suburban setting for their industrial-grade hardware. First came the trenching, a neat line cut from my garage, under the lawn, grass, out to the edge of the driveway near the sidewalk. Conduit laid, heavy-gauge electrical wire pulled through. While that was happening, another crew member precisely measured and marked out a square near the driveway entrance, just inside my property line, and started digging out the base. This activity, naturally, did not go unnoticed. Mrs. Gable from across the street paused her power walk, hands on hips, observing the proceedings with undisguised curiosity. Young Timmy from down the block rode his bike back and forth, asking Gary's crew if they were installing a secret car wash. And Karen? Oh, Karen was watching. Her blinds weren't just twitching, they were practically doing the cha-cha. I could feel her laser beam stare from behind the glass. Then came the concrete truck, rumbling down Maple Lane again. Neighbors peeked out. This wasn't just a minor repair. This was infrastructure. They poured a solid, perfectly level concrete pad, embedding anchor bolts. While that cured, Gary's crew carefully unpacked the main event, the operator cabinet and the boom arm itself. Sleek, white metal cabinet, maybe 4 feet high. Long, sturdy aluminum arm, probably 12 feet, painted in those classic diagonal red and white stripes. It looked serious, like something guarding a military base. "All right, Greg," Gary said, supervising the mounting of the cabinet onto the cured concrete base. "Cabinet's in. Wiring it up now. Then we mount the arm, balance it, program the limits." They worked meticulously, connecting wires, bolting down the cabinet, attaching the long arm to the motor mechanism, balancing it precisely. Then they took a small saw and cut neat lines into my asphalt driveway near the entrance, installing the induction loops for vehicle detection, one loop for safety under the arm, one further out for automatic opening when I drove out. Finally, they mounted the photo eye sensors on small posts on either side of the driveway entrance. By late afternoon, it was done. Gary walked me through the operation. "Okay, standard remote," he said, handing me 2 sleek black fobs. 1 click up, 1 click down, holds position. It's got obstruction sensing. If the arm hits something on the way down, it should stop and reverse. Photo eyes add another layer. If anything breaks that beam while it's closing, it reverses. Exit loop means when you drive out, it'll open automatically and then close behind you after a preset delay. We set it for 10 seconds, adjustable if you want. He pressed the remote. With a smooth, satisfying whir, the red and white arm rose gracefully, pointing towards the sky. He pressed it again. It descended just as smoothly, coming to a gentle stop, perfectly horizontal, completely blocking the driveway entrance about 3 feet off the ground. "There she is," Gary said, looking proud despite the absurdity. "1 residential boom barrier, fully operational. Try not to, accidentally lock yourself out." He chuckled. "Call us if you have any issues. Though honestly, these things are pretty bulletproof." They packed up and left. The street fell quiet again. Except now, standing sentinel at the end of my driveway was a commercial-grade parking barrier. It looked magnificent and utterly ridiculous. I couldn't stop grinning. I spent the next hour testing it. Up, down, up, down. The whirring sound was music to my ears. I parked my car just inside, testing the safety sensors. They worked. I walked through the photo beam as it closed. It stopped and went back up. Perfect. Now all I had to do was wait. I didn't have to wait long. Around 5:30 p.m., Karen's beige Camry rounded the corner. She slowed, flicked her turn signal, a formality, as she usually just swung right in, and started to turn into my driveway. I was coincidentally weeding a flower bed nearby, watching from the corner of my eye. Her car nosed towards the entrance, then stopped abruptly. I saw her head jerk forward slightly. Confusion registered on her face. She craned her neck, peering at the red and white arm blocking her path. She honked, once, sharply. The barrier remained impassive. She put the car in reverse, backed up slightly, then nosed forward again, as if maybe the barrier was a heat mirage that would vanish if she just believed hard enough. Nope. Still there. She honked again, longer this time. Then she killed the engine, threw open her car door, and stormed towards me, face thunderous. "Michael!" she snapped, jabbing a finger towards the barrier. "What is the meaning of this thing? It's blocking the driveway." I stood up, brushing dirt off my knees, adopting my most innocent expression. Blocking my driveway, Karen? Oh, you mean the new access control system? Pretty neat, huh? Just had it installed today. Security upgrade. Security? She sputtered. It's a parking lot arm. You can't just put that up. I need to park here. My usual spot. Your usual spot? I asked, feigning surprise. Karen, this is my private driveway. It was never your spot. And now, access is controlled. I held up the remote, dangling it slightly. Residents only. But where am I supposed to park when Mildred visits? She stammered, grasping for justification. The street gets so crowded. That sounds like a you problem, Karen, I said, maybe a little colder than intended. There's usually space down by the corner, or Mildred could park in your driveway. This is outrageous, she fumed. It's against HOA rules. It's probably illegal. It looks hideous. I am reporting this immediately. She spun around, got back in her car, executed a furious three-point turn, nearly hitting her own mailbox, and sped off down the street, presumably heading straight for the HOA president's house, or maybe just to draft another strongly worded letter. I watched her go, then looked back at the boom barrier, standing silent guard. I pressed the remote. Whir. Up it went. I pressed it again. Whir. Down it came. Peace. Quiet. An unblocked driveway. It was the most beautiful sight in the world. The official fallout began the next morning. A certified letter from the HOA, predictably. Violation notice. Installation of unapproved driveway obstruction, modification. Violation notice. Installation of non-conforming commercial equipment. Violation notice. Significant aesthetic deviation from community standards. They demanded its immediate removal and threatened daily fines if it wasn't gone within 7 days. Then, around lunchtime, the police showed up again. Same 2 officers. They looked tired before they even got out of the car. Mr. Miller, the senior one sighed, walking up my driveway, under the raised barrier. I'd opened it when I saw them coming. We need to talk about the, gate arm. My access control system, what about it, officer? Well, your neighbor, Karen, he glanced next door, called 911 again. Seriously? What for this time? Claims the barrier is an illegal structure, that it's obstructing public access. It clearly wasn't near the sidewalk. And, he paused, consulting his notes, she also claims it malfunctioned and almost hit her car this morning. I scoffed. That's impossible. It has multiple safety sensors. It stops if a feather floats through the beam. She probably just drove up too close and got mad when it didn't magically disappear. The officer nodded slowly. Look, sir, we checked again. Structurally, it doesn't appear to violate any city ordinances we enforce regarding placement or obstruction. The damage claim? That's a civil matter between you two if she wants to pursue it. Tell her to file a report. Honestly, this whole thing is an HOA dispute, not a police matter. He lowered his voice slightly. But between you and me, this thing, he gestured at the barrier, while maybe solving your parking problem is like waving a giant red flag in front of a very angry bull next door. Try to keep things civil, all right? We really don't want to keep coming back here. Understood, officer, I said, just trying to protect my property. They nodded wearily and left. The barrier remained. Round 2 to Greg. But the HOA war was just beginning. The HOA, predictably, did not take the police department's "it's a civil matter" stance lying down. If anything, it seemed to galvanize them. The violation notices kept coming, now accompanied by threats of hefty fines, starting at $50 a day, escalating rapidly. They scheduled an emergency hearing with the ARC and the main HOA board. Attendance mandatory. Subject: egregious installation of non-compliant commercial access barrier and associated aesthetic violations at 112 Maple Lane. They weren't subtle. I consulted a lawyer buddy over beers, showed him the HOA letters, pictures of the barrier, explained the Karen situation. He mostly just laughed. "Legally," he said, wiping foam from his lip. "It's fascinating. They probably don't have a specific bylaw against boom barriers, so they're hitting you with aesthetic standards and unapproved modifications. Your defense is property rights. The lack of specific prohibition, and the fact that it solves a documented nuisance they failed to address. It'll come down to how much money they want to spend fighting you, and how much you want to spend defending it." He suggested responding formally, denying the violations based on lack of specific rules, highlighting the barrier's safety features, and stating its necessity due to the prior unresolved parking issue. So I spent an evening drafting a very polite, very firm letter, basically telling them to pound sand, legally speaking. The HOA meeting was pure theater. Held in the clubhouse, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Karen was there, naturally, sitting front row center, armed with a folder thick enough to be her manifesto. Mr. Abernathy presided, looking even more tired than the cops had. Mrs. Davenport, from my previous neighborhood's chapel escapade, just kidding, different Davenport, probably, the ARC chair, looked like she'd swallowed vinegar. Their lawyer, a slick guy I mentally nicknamed Mr. Loophole, presented first. Slideshow. Pictures of my house before the barrier. Peaceful, beige. Pictures after. Industrial, jarring, red and white striped. Quotes from anonymous neighbors about the commercialization of the neighborhood. Dire warnings about plummeting property values. He argued the barrier was a structure requiring ARC approval, which was denied retroactively, violated aesthetic guidelines, and constituted a nuisance. Then it was my turn. I kept it simple. "Members of the board," I began, trying to sound reasonable. "For over a year, my driveway was repeatedly blocked by my neighbor, preventing me from leaving my home, making me late for work, and causing significant stress. I documented these incidents. I held up a folder with photos and dates. I requested assistance from the HOA, which stated it could not intervene in parking disputes on private driveways. I tried polite notes, conversations, and temporary deterrents like cones, all of which were ignored or circumvented. Faced with no other recourse, I continued, I installed a standard vehicle access control system on my private property to prevent unauthorized parking and ensure access to my own home. The system was professionally installed, includes multiple safety features, meets all city requirements regarding setbacks and electrical work, and does not obstruct any public right-of-way. While unusual for a residence, it is not explicitly prohibited by any specific HOA bylaw I or my council could find regarding driveway access control. It simply solves a problem the association was unable to resolve." Karen practically leapt out of her seat. "It's hideous! It's dangerous! He's targeting me! He almost hit my car!" "That's demonstrably false," I countered calmly. "The safety sensors prevent that." "It lowers the tone," Henderson's spiritual successor chimed in. "Being trapped in your own home lowers the tone more," I retorted. The debate went back and forth. They threatened massive fines, legal action to force removal. I stood my ground, citing my property rights and their previous inaction. In the end, they didn't have the votes, or maybe the legal confidence, to order immediate removal pending litigation. Instead, they voted to impose the maximum daily fines for aesthetic violations and unapproved structural modification, while their lawyer further explored enforcement options. Basically, they decided to try and fine me into submission. So began the era of living with the boom. And honestly, it was mostly great. Pulling up to my driveway, clicking the remote, watching the arm glide up, pulling into my garage, clicking again, watching it glide down, knowing that Karen couldn't block me in. pure, unadulterated bliss, worth every penny. There were adjustments, of course. Explaining to the pizza delivery guy how to use the non-existent Call-A box became a recurring theme. Just pull up close, I'll see you on the camera, and open it. The Amazon driver looked deeply confused the first few times. Friends thought it was hilarious. Stan offered to paint flames on the arm. I declined. Kevin Jr. thought it was awesome and kept asking if he could have a remote. Absolutely not. Karen, predictably, adapted her tactics. She couldn't park in the driveway, so she started parking directly in front of it, on the street, sometimes blocking the apron just enough to make getting out a tight squeeze. But that was street parking. Technically legal, though incredibly obnoxious. Still, it wasn't blocking me in. Progress. She also continued to complain about the mechanical noise of the barrier. It was a quiet whir. About the unsightly concrete base. About the commercial appearance. The HOA dutifully forwarded these complaints along with the daily fine notices. I started using the fine notices as scrap paper. Life settled into a new, slightly absurd rhythm. Me, the suburban dad with the parking garage arm guarding his driveway. Karen, the perpetually aggrieved neighbor, forced to park like a normal person. The HOA, sending impotent letters into the void. And the boom barrier, silently, smoothly, doing its job. The great boom barrier standoff lasted for about 3 months. 3 months of daily fine notices piling up on my counter. 3 months of Karen parking her beige Camry with pointed legality just outside the barrier's reach. 3 months of me enjoying the sweet, sweet freedom of an unblocked driveway every single morning. The HOA kept threatening legal action, but their lawyer must have advised them that forcing the removal of a structure that wasn't explicitly banned, didn't violate city code, and actually solved a documented problem, albeit unconventionally, was going to be an expensive, uphill battle they might not win. Especially since I wasn't backing down on paying the purely aesthetic-based fines, daring them to take me to court over them. What finally broke the stalemate wasn't a lawsuit or a sudden change of heart from Karen. It was Bob, Karen's husband. Bob was generally a quiet guy, mostly seemed mortified by his wife's antics. One Saturday morning he caught me while I was mowing the lawn, the part outside the barrier, obviously. Greg? He mumbled, looking uncomfortable. Got a second? Sure, Bob, what's up? I asked, cutting the mower engine. He shuffled his feet. Look, about the gate thing. He gestured vaguely. I know Karen's been difficult. Understatement of the century. But honestly, it's kinda working. I raised an eyebrow. Working? Yeah, he sighed. She hasn't gotten a single parking ticket since you put it up. Used to happen all the time when she'd park weird places down the street 'cause she couldn't just block you. He winced. And, frankly, it's nice knowing where she can't park when I need to get the SUV out. I stared at him. Was this an admission? An olive branch? So, he continued, avoiding eye contact, I was talking to Abernathy down at the HOA meeting prep. Maybe there's a way to make this less confrontational? Like, if the arm wasn't bright red and white, maybe painted it to match the house trim or something? Just spitballing. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was the closest I was going to get. A potential truce, brokered by the long-suffering husband. Paint the arm beige or desert sage in exchange for the HOA calling off the dogs and the fines? I thought about it. The red and white stripes were a bit obnoxious, a visual statement. But the function was the important part. Keeping the arm, losing the fight over its color, seemed like a reasonable compromise. It would still block Karen, still solve my problem, but maybe lower the overall neighborhood blood pressure and my potential legal fees. So we negotiated. Through lawyers, of course, because this was still the HOA. The deal was struck. I would repaint the boom arm a pre-approved HOA neutral color. Taupe tranquility, naturally. In return, the HOA would cease all fines, drop all pending actions related to the barrier, and officially recognize it as a grandfathered resident installed access control device, or some such bureaucratic nonsense. Karen wasn't happy about it, I heard, but Bob and the potential legal costs apparently convinced the board. A week later, Gary the Gate Guy's crew came back, prepped the arm, and gave it 2 coats of taupe tranquility. It looked less like a parking garage and more like a very, very serious piece of beige lawn art. It still went up and down. It still kept Karen out. Mission accomplished, albeit in a more muted tone. And that's how it is now. The taupe tranquility boom barrier stands guard. It whirs up when I approach, whirs down after I leave. Deliveries are still a minor hassle, but manageable. Karen parks down the street, legally. We don't talk, but the open warfare has ceased. The HOA sends me notices about my recycling bin placement sometimes, but not about the barrier. Was it overkill? Absolutely. Did it cost way too much money and stress? Definitely. Do I regret installing a commercial-grade parking barrier on my suburban driveway to stop my neighbor from being a self-absorbed parking menace? Not for one single solitary second. Every morning I click my remote. The taupe arm glides up. I back out, completely unobstructed. Sometimes I see Karen getting into her car down the street. Sometimes I give a little wave. Sometimes she pretends not to see me. But my driveway? It's mine again. Access granted. You just gotta know when and how to lower the boom.